Just fucking give myself electric shock off this microphone. There's something dodgy about this. I don't know where I got it from. Probably somewhere in China. Jesus. Electric shocks. They're nasty, aren't they? No fun. Anyway. Buongiorno and welcome to the My Way of Thinking podcast, hosted by me, Ali Greeno, here live from the Man Cave every week. And today I'm speaking to Jack Street. Jack has been on the show before. Jack runs Demographica UK. I think I've got that right. If I haven't, no doubt he'll tell me. And we always talk about relevant subjects. He's always got lots on his mind and he wants to have a good old chinwag. So I love having Jack on. You're going to love this episode. Now remember, there's only 4 rules on the My Way of Thinking podcast. 1 is no bullshitting, 2 no judging, 3 no negativity, and 4 have fun, which we do with this chat. Okay, let's get on with it. This is my interview with the brilliant Jack. So welcome to My Way of Thinking, and today I have a very special returning guest. It is the one and only Mr. Jack Street. Welcome, Jack.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here again. I can't believe it's been so long since I came on. How long has it been? It's been like almost a year, probably.
I'll tell you what, this with this lockdown, it's completely thrown timelines.
Yeah.
Hasn't it? You've lost, it's like one of these films, Space Continuum.
I met a friend that I haven't seen in about 2 years. We went to university together, and we were saying that, like, we keep in contact obviously a lot, but we were saying that it simultaneously feels like it's gone really, really, really quickly, but absolutely nothing has happened.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre.
It is. And the first lockdown, we shut down at work completely. And then the second lockdown, I went in because we were a testing centre. But no one was coming in. Like, the part that was open was just the testing centre. So I was just opening and shutting the building.
Yeah.
So it was almost like a zombie apocalypse. So, I've been from nothing at home every day to zombie apocalypse to now full on everyone wants to book everything. Yeah. It's like emotional.
yeah, it's crazy. Like even going into London during the lockdown to do bits of work here and there, it's like completely dead. When there would be hundreds of people around at all times, at any area, any time of day, and there's nobody there. And then now it's everything's getting back going and everyone's really busy again. So which is good to see, of course.
The other thing is as well with me is actually I quite enjoyed certain bits of lockdown. So if I could take those bits that I enjoyed, you know what I mean? There are bits, because yes, it was stressful at times, but there were very nice, there were nice bits as well, because I was spending time with, like, my daughter. She was off school, nightmare, she's off school, but she learned to play chess with me. And watch classic film shanty. So, my son, he wanted to start playing golf. So all these little bits that you think, if lockdown hadn't happened, he'd probably be out with his mates, she'd be at school. So there's those little tippets, aren't there, that are...
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, you've got to find the positives and the silver linings in any situation, haven't you? And those things have been great. Obviously there's been other areas that have been really difficult. And it depends on kind of what your situation is. And like that's something that I've felt really sort of blessed to have is the kind of security to be able to do this. And like you mentioned golf, something that I picked up during lockdown with a friend of mine is playing golf, and I'm completely addicted. Addicted. I never thought I'd play golf. I was like one of those people like, golf's not a real sport. It's just hitting a ball with a stick. It's probably really easy. No, I'm totally hooked.
It gets you, doesn't it? Well, go on.
No, it does. Yeah, totally. And I was like up the driving range, every other day during lockdown when it was open, and playing, and it's like simultaneously the most frustrating thing in the world, but the most satisfying thing in the world when you do it right. I'm a massive convert. That's
great. I know that, because when you want, we can have a game, because I actually had a guest on last year and I played with him the other weekend, James. We went for a game. We finally got around to organising a game. It was such good fun. But what I love about golf, I've been playing for quite a few years and stopped and start, but you can only ever blame yourself. You can't blame no one else.
Although I try to find some excuses, but no, you're right.
I think you grow as a person as well. I remember when I was younger and I was snapping clubs, throwing bags in lakes, things like that. now if I have a bad show, I'm quite chilled now. I'm like, yeah, you know, so it is a fantastic game. So
Yeah, definitely.
we'll
I
sort
love
that
it.
out. What
Yeah,
have you
for
got an
sure.
handicap yet?
No. I'm still like, if I hit the ball straight twice, 3 times in a row, I'm happy.
Stick at it.
Yeah,
At it. You'll
I will.
love it. Yeah, love it. Right then. Well, before we start, obviously we'll talk about everything you've been up to, politics, Demographic UK, and all that kind of thing. But first of all, we'll start with a couple of stories that I've noticed.
Sure.
And today was a couple of crackers. This one is quite an interesting one. This is about a woman named Alicia has gone viral on TikTok. Every story at the minute is just viral on TikTok after she shared her journey with her snapping dentures after losing all of her teeth due to severe decay during pregnancy. And we might spend several minutes a day brushing and flossing our teeth, but aside from that, most of us don't spend much time thinking about them. I know it's a bigger thing now with Invisalign and people do, you know, like to keep their teeth healthy, but this poor lady, it was through no problem of her own. It happened through pregnancy, which is terrible. So she got snapping dentures and she shared the picture of her before and after, and it's pretty phenomenal, the difference. If you get a chance, I'll put a link on the video. And people are praising her for being so so honest and how amazing she is. And then you've got some dickhead saying she's a catfish and it should be illegal. So
there's always one, isn't there?
I know it did make me smile. You know, we've always got this side of us, haven't we, where there's always going to be one idiot that's like, ooh, look at the state of her. But I'll put the pictures up. The transformation is amazing, and I really felt for her. And
it's amazing what you can do now. Like, you know, some of those transformational stuff, and it's good that people are more open about talking about it. I never knew that could be a side effect of pregnancy, tooth decay or whatever. But it's amazing what they can do, though. These transformations are incredible.
It is, and I think it's such a confidence thing as well. You know, I think we get a lot of stuff on social media where people are, you know, these women with the big boobs and trying to look for Kim Kardashian. And that's sort of just cosmetic bullshit that they're trying to sell themselves, where this is just a woman trying to gain more confidence and getting a brilliant dentures, and so fair play to her, bless her. But yeah, when you see the pictures, it's pretty unbelievable. And then the other story that I was looking at, which just made me laugh. I think I've done one with McDonald's before. But one woman quit her job at McDonald's. These are both McDonald's, I'll tell you. Right. So many of us have enjoyed a daydream where we hand in our notice in a dramatic fashion after a tough day. You know, fuck it, God, I'm doing one. In reality, announcing you're leaving a job can be nothing short of awkward. But one worker found a way to get the message across. The McDonald's employee in Kentucky left a blunt sign on the drive-thru, and it said, "We are closed because I'm quitting and hate this job." And there's a picture. Yeah, and I thought the power in words. But we've talked about McDonald's before. They've been so busy, and I know they don't get paid a huge amount, bless them. Yeah. They do have a hell of a job. Yeah. So I did like that, the way she's just done that, which is great. And then the other thing, which was, because while we're on at McDonald's, a pretty amusing tale of revenge in McDonald's drive-thru has been doing the round online for quite a few years. I didn't know this, but it's recently resurfaced. When craving for a Big Mac or McNuggets issues, nothing worse than getting stuck in a long queue for the drive-in, and most people generally think food's worth the wait. One woman recently took to social media to share an awkward experience where she claimed to have a McDonald's drive-thru, but there's more to the story that meets the eye. The unnamed woman living in Australia said she'd been placing her order when a young lady behind her honking her horn to hurry up. That'd really annoy me. Yeah. Finding the behaviour rude, the woman said she quickly hatched a plan to teach the other driver. I was in a long McDonald's drive-thru queue this morning. The woman honked behind me, so I thought to myself, take the high road. So I paid for my food at the first window, and then I paid for hers as well.
Oh, lovely. Oh, that's heartwarming.
eh? Lifting the tone.
Yeah,
Someone,
I like
now,
it.
how stupid did that girl feel when she
Yeah,
rolled up?
right?
Oh,
That's the best.
it
That's the best
is.
way to get back on people, though, isn't it? You know, with kindness.
It
Yeah, kill them
is.
with
It
kindness. I
is.
like it.
It is. It's all fluffy and but there is some truth to be
Yeah,
told.
for sure.
And sometimes you'll see like arguing. Maybe you'll see an argument in public where they're both clashing. It's awful. You don't know where
Yeah,
to look. And you think so there's something to be said in that. Take the
yeah,
high road. You know, say, look, I understand you're not, but and we've spoke about it before on this program about having opinions and respecting each other's opinions. You might not agree with each other, but respect
yeah.
the
It's crucial.
opinions. So
I think
yeah.
people get so crazy, don't they? You know, I think most people's lives are so full on, and we're so, 100 miles an hour all the time, particularly cars. Something about cars, brings out the worst in people, like road rage. You say stuff to people in a car that you would never say to them. It's like a bit like saying stuff to people online. It's like you say stuff to people in cars that you never say to their face. But yeah, the best way to combat that is with kindness, I reckon. I think it's definitely true, and with respect.
Yeah, definitely. And I've started taking up motorcycling again over the last since lockdown started.
Yeah.
A bit of a midlife crisis, and I just thought I used to be a bit of a nutter on a bike, but now I'm older and wise. I just enjoy it. And you see so many motorists angry, and it's like, if you want to go ahead of me, go ahead. I've got nothing to prove. I'm not on a sports bike. I'm not going to fly off 110 miles. I'm just going to enjoy it. There's no dramas. If someone doesn't indicate, I've had a few cars pull out on me, but I'm not, I'll just slow down, press the brake, just say, go ahead. Whereas I could be going absolutely mad. What's the point? There's no...
Exactly. It ruins your day as well, doesn't it? You're not like that person's not going to change as an individual because you flip them off. It just ruins your day.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, thanks ever so much for coming on again, Jack. Let's shoot the shit.
There's a lot to talk about.
Hey, there is a lot. Let's start off with Demographica UK.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about how that's been going, because I know you've been doing loads of stuff on there.
It's amazing, like since I think when we last spoke, we were just kind of making the transition to becoming a media outlet, and there was probably like 4 or 5 of us who were making different kinds of content, and we had loads of ideas and thinking about how to kind of transfer that into actual content. Now there's 25 of us. Putting out content. We've just on the road to getting our first piece of funding. We've kind of rebranded, so whilst the website's still Demographica UK, we're going by DGN now. So I'll show you, like, that's our new logo. I don't know if you can see that.
Very nice.
My laptop. We're going and doing stuff in person now. So we set up a press team to cover the Uyghur Tribunal. And we're going to talk a little bit about China and a bit about that. So we're covering events in person now, which is great, amongst some of the biggest media outlets in the world, which is pretty surreal at times. But asking questions and putting out content to compete with these outlets that's all driven by young people. That's what we're all about, is giving young people who wouldn't have had the opportunity to be going to these events or covering these stories if we didn't exist, the opportunity to do that. And that's what we're all about. And we created some amazing content. Because of it, we've got 4 or 5 new shows in production. We're producing a documentary, all sorts of stuff going on. Very busy, but it's been amazing, and without, like you were saying before, without the pandemic, we wouldn't have been able to have the opportunity to do this, really. So it's kind of been a blessing in many ways, and feel very lucky to have it to the point where we have it now.
I know when we spoke last time, because you wanted it to grow, and obviously that's what you've been doing. You've just been saying that hopefully you're getting some funding, because I know we spoke about that last time, and it's always a bit of a pain in the arse to get funding and grants and things like that. So tell us a little bit about that. Did you find that process easy in the end, or was it a case of just keeping at it?
It's perseverance. That's all it is. And particularly at the moment, it's difficult because on the one hand, like from a consumer point of view, people are tight with their money, and understandably so. It's very difficult at the moment. And then from a business perspective, we have to kind of find different ways in which to raise funds and ways to drive content forward without putting any money in or putting the bare minimum in. There is a lot that you can do with no money if you're willing to put sort of like the graft in. Particularly in this space, there are so many tools now where you can create graphics. For example, if we use Canva. If you're using Canva to create graphics, you can create really, really good looking graphics for free. And same with different kinds of editing software. So you just have to be a bit savvy. And we've got an amazing team, like I said, of 25 people now who put in loads of really hard work to get stuff out. But in terms of funding, it's just looking at different ways that you can take funding on board. So we're launching a crowdfunder in a few days just to raise like 500 quid to buy some new equipment for some of our contributors to help, get them a better camera and a better mic. But also we've been lucky enough to find an individual who's willing to help fund us, and we're super transparent about where that's coming from, and we're really lucky to help sort of inject our work over the next year in order to kind of grow and get more funding and bring on more people and raise the production level. So it's really lucky.
That's great. I mean, from a filmmaker's perspective, I know all about funding and grants and what a complete ball ache. But I always boil it down to two things. There's two different types of getting funding, so to speak. And one is you've got everything in place. For film, you'll have a lead actor that's a name. So Happy Days, it's a named actor. You've got 50% from an investor. You go for funding. Pretty straightforward. They like the project, you'll get the funding. Now, that is 1%. 99% of the other people can't get a named actor, can't get 50% upfront. And how they get funding is through perseverance. It's just a case of just keeping trying and trying, and something will drop. I always remember I interviewed a young lad once, and he was no good for the job. He was too young, inexperienced. Lovely lad, but just totally wrong for it. And he applied again a year later when it came up again. Still too young. He just weren't quite up to it. And then he applied again. Basically, eventually he got the job. So, because I thought I would rather have someone who's got that passion and that drive and might not have all the experience, all the qualifications, but you can have all the qualifications in the world if you don't turn up, so to speak, physically or mentally. Whereas he was like a sponge, and he'd soak it up, and if he didn't take it in, he'd go home and try and learn. So, and I always put that sort of analogy for funding. If you keep trying, they'll see something in you, and you will get there.
For sure, it's definitely true for funding, but I think it's true for most things in life. Like you say, jobs or starting a project and making something work, or your relationships. Don't give up on stuff. Keep trying to make it work. Keep being open, being communicative, being willing to learn, and keep driving stuff forward. Like we always say, Brett and I, my business partner Brett, we would be doing this stuff if we weren't looking for funding. We would be going on podcasts. We'd be having conversations. The reason we started Demographica DGN to begin with was because we wished it existed when we were 16. And we'd still be trying to drive it forward as a sort of part-time project anyway. So for us to try and make it be a full-time thing, it's not that much more of an ask. Like we're completely committed to it, completely passionate about it. We're always going to be doing it. So why not try and make some money out of it and make it as big as we possibly can, and provide opportunities to as many people as we can. And going back to what you were saying about finding people who are passionate and care and can be a bit of a sponge and absorb stuff. That's what we're always looking for in people who want to create content. It's like you don't need to have gone to Oxford. You don't need to be studying politics or have a degree in politics to be able to talk about politics or social issues. You just need to be interested, have something to say, be willing to listen, be willing to learn, be willing to communicate stuff, and be willing to get involved. And that's what we're looking for more than anything. And what I think and I really want to come onto this, that like the mainstream media has missed out on is that there are so many people out there who are really passionate about topics, particularly young people, but aren't given the opportunity to talk about them. So they become disenfranchised. I'm sure we spoke about this before. But what we want to do is minimize the amount of people that feel like that, right? So if you've got something at 15, 16, you've got a burning passion, a burning desire to talk about, we want to provide a space for those people to discuss that stuff. And we've had 13-year-old kids write articles about climate change that are more passionate, more eloquent, more informative than stuff that's going out on the BBC or Sky News or whatever. Like, it really is amazing. I read some stuff written by 14-year-olds, and I'm like, there's no way.
And it's from a quite an honest place as well when you're that age as well. When you get older, you get a bit more bitter, have more of an agenda. But when you're young, you just say how it is and how you feel, which I think is refreshing. Where do you see Demographica UK going in, say, 10 years' time? What's the vision?
So obviously we have our outlet, and we still want to be creating content and producing programs for our outlet, whether that be sort of like web series for our YouTube channel or podcasts or articles. We want to be competing with some of the biggest media outlets in the country, and we want to be one of the biggest independent media outlets in the UK. You know, that's our goal. You know, from our point of view, it's a pretty simple goal, not necessarily to achieve, but you know, to be striving for. And then sort of more broadly, I mean, as a production company, which is kind of the route that we're taking, we want to help to give those individuals who have ideas for content the opportunity to create content in a professional setting by taking all the extraneous kind of annoying stuff out of their hands, so they can focus on sitting down and recording the podcast or the show. Yeah. And you know, like the most difficult part isn't this part, like this is the fun bit. The most difficult part is exactly, it's the bit that nobody wants to do, and that's what we want to, you know, we've got a bunch of really skilled editors that enjoy doing that stuff and can we can go to somebody who's got a really great idea or who's already creating really good content but maybe doesn't have the production value and say, look, we love what you do. We can take all of that stuff out of your hands and raise the production level and get a bigger audience to your podcast, your platform, whatever it is you're doing, and really drive it forward and help you, you know, sort of grow your platform. And that's where I sort of view it going in the long run.
That's and that what you're saying is great, because you do have some people that are not technically minded. You know, they speak eloquently, they've got great ideas, but the technology, they're like, you see it sometimes like, oh, I ain't got a clue how to do this and that. And then it can put them off. So what you're saying there is great, that the fact that you'll try and embrace that and help take away those problems, because it is quite daunting. Sure. Technology can be, but if you do it small steps at a time, but some people don't see that we use technology, so we're used to doing this, we're used to editing it, but the reality is there's people out there that have never used a computer. Mobile phones for some people, you still see now, don't you, on the old Nokia, like, I like this phone. So yeah, it's all a learning curve, but you're easing the terrifying technology, which is great. The other thing which is interesting, which you say, I thought, which made me laugh, about editing. I said to my daughter the other day, I said, look, editing takes quite a long time. It's a great skill to have, I think, in life. When you've got that basic editing, it's great for everything. So I said, well, what you could do, I'll start teaching you editing on here. You can start editing the podcast, and I'll pay you £5 for every time you edit. And she goes, not really interested in that. I don't really want to do it. I was like, when I was your age, I did a paper round 7 days a week, rode my bike about 20 miles and got £5. I've asked you to edit one podcast and you're moaning. Kids. Can't win.
No, you can't. But something that's interesting is that they're teaching these skills more and more in school. You know, it's like, I was speaking to somebody the other day and they were saying that they're teaching like programming in school now. It's like, something I never would have, you know, even me, you know, I wasn't at school that long ago, but I never would have been taught programming. I never would have even thought that was something that I could have learned. But these are skills that are being taught more and more, which is great. And like, I hate the editing side of stuff. You know, I'm not good at it. I mean, you pick up, like you say, these skills, and it's one of the amazing things about like kind of running a startup is that you learn stuff that you never thought you would learn. I've got so much useless information in my brain, like color codes for really specific pieces of content. Like, it's so stupid. But you know, you pick up all these skills, but also there are people out there that are willing to help, you know, and it's about having the confidence to reach out to people. And that's what we want to do, is say, look, we can take care of all of that stuff and you know, help you know, make your life easier. Essentially, that's our job. So yeah.
And you know, when you say about media outlet and where you want to be up there with the big boys, how is that a case of just being on the big shows, asking questions, getting involved in debates, or would you like to sort of have your own media outlet where you could have your own show or something like that? Or are you just happy to just have more of a voice?
Well, that's like from our point of view, and for our creators' point of view, I guess the best way of explaining it would be that there was kind of two sort of prongs. Like on the one hand, you've got the DGN, the media outlet, right, where we have our own shows, we have our own debates. You know, we do debates on our Instagram, we have different series on our YouTube channel. We have podcasts that go out, and that's all under our umbrella. You know, it's our outlet, so that's our content, and we want to have that content compete with like you say, the big boys, because we believe that we do it in a sort of more productive, more entertaining way that leads conversations and creates discussions that are solution focused and solution driven. I think a lot of what the bigger media outlets have added to, whether it be on purpose or you know, by accident, because they are driven by making money primarily, is that they've created conversations, take, you know, Good Morning Britain, where you're just pitting people against each other, and it's not driven by sort of compassion or whatever, it's driven by, you know, figures, kind of hatred for each other and figures and anger and, you know, shouting matches and exactly, right? But it's entertaining on the one hand, but how much good does it do, you know, as a country? And I don't think it does us any good. So that's kind of, on the one hand, what we're doing, you know, in our own content to compete, and then on the other hand, producing content that has a similar ethos, but maybe in different areas, and it isn't necessarily politics or social issues. So that would be the best way of looking at it, I think. So as an outlet, I don't know, you know, you're probably aware of like Vice. There's a company in the US called Jubilee, you know, like Vox, these kind of online-based platforms. They're the sorts of people that we want to be kind of competing with and kind of, you know, for the moment following in their footsteps, but driving the industry forward in a more productive way.
Yeah, it's a good point, because what I mean, you use Good Morning Britain, which is a classic example. How often do they actually interview and speak to young people? It's not very often, and when it is, it's usually a silly subject sometimes, and it's giving people more of a voice, young people more of a voice. I mean, that's one thing about Question Time, which always makes me laugh, is that they're asking the audience, and you get that passion from all these people. It's not set up. I know they probably know the questions beforehand, but I like that passion that you're getting real people asking really real questions. Sometimes politicians and celebrities, it's all, you know, it's all rehearsed. You can see it a mile off. It's quite frustrating sometimes. You're like, you know, don't tell us for ratings. Tell us what you feel, but you just don't get that.
That's the thing. Like you say, it's not a real conversation. This is all manufactured. You know, first of all, if you take BBC just as an example,
the BBC.
the premise of the BBC is a wonderful thing. Like I love the BBC. I think we need a state broadcaster. I think the majority of the work, maybe less so the news stuff, but the majority of the work that the BBC does is amazing work, and we need to protect it and cherish it. I think the news element of it, they've kind of got completely wrong. You know, they've got this obligation to be impartial, right? And the way that they've perceived that is that if you have a conversation on climate change, you can have like a scientist that's studied climate change for 35 years and knows all the ins and outs of all of the scientific research. And if you have that person on, you have to have some idiot come on who like knows absolutely nothing about climate change whatsoever, and they believe that it's all a hoax, it's all completely fake. And you give those people exactly the same platform on this want to be impartial. And it happens on the, you know, from the other side as well. If you have a conversation about economics and you have like an economist on, you have somebody on who really is like, you know, they might have a blog on the economy or something. It's not the same level of expertise, and suggesting that those people have the same amount of knowledge is actually really dangerous for kind of like our democracy and the conversations that we have. And also, you're doing these things in like 2 or 3 minutes. You can't have a real conversation, which is why this sort of thing is so important. In 2 or 3 minutes, you're not going to, you know, get anything over to the viewer or any kind of real quality over to the viewer. And what that drives you to do is to ask questions where you're trying to provoke some kind of reaction, some kind of response, to drive up ratings, to create more content for your social media page, to get eyeballs onto it so you can make money. Because the only way you make money, not in the case of the BBC, but for everybody else, is through ads. And that's what advertisers want. The more views you get, the more ad revenue you get. And it's just a shit system. And it doesn't work in terms of creating a positive and productive discourse and like a solution-based discourse. Like, we're never going to find the solutions to all of our problems in that way. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, it is frustrating, the BBC. Like I say, I think it's a great broadcaster and we need it in Britain. But the impartiality thing's getting a bit old now. It's starting to drag its feet a little bit when certain newsreaders or something give an inkling of a side or an opinion. It's looked down upon, and it's like, come on. They're real people. You want to see real people. You know, look at what I just said about Piers Morgan. As annoying as he is, at least you know he's straight. He's not mincing his words. He's giving his opinion. Yeah. And I think people value that more these days. And I think on the BBC, sometimes you'll watch it and you think, oh, God's sake, you know, tell them what you're thinking. Don't. The world is not all, you know, rosy and fluffy clouds. And it's like we've said before, have an opinion, but respect the other person's opinion. There's no right. Sometimes there's, well, why do we have to think one thing is right and one thing's wrong this day and age? We don't. We talk about it. You have to be left or right. Come on, we're big, you know, we're grown-ups now. There's a lot going on in the world. We don't need this bullshit. But anyway, that's...
Well, no, I agree. And the thing with the BBC is, like, the impartiality thing isn't the reason that the BBC needs to be impartial isn't because they need to give, like, the same credence to each side. It's about the purpose of the news, the purpose of the conversation is about finding what's factual. That's the impartiality aspect. It's about not putting kind of political views onto conversations that should be about finding the facts. That's it, you know. And what they've kind of misinterpreted, in my view, is that should be about providing both sides in a way that is completely equitable, which is impossible. First of all, like, you can't do that, and it's also a silly idea because, unfortunately, in some conversations, take climate change for example, there are facts and there is fiction, and you can't give that stuff the same, like, put that stuff on the same level. You know, because it's not helpful for the conversation at all. The left and right thing's a really good example. You know, like you say, like, a lot of the issues that are facing us aren't political. They shouldn't be political. You know, there are facts to get down to, and there are, you know, ways in which, framing the conversation, we should all be able to sit there and go, okay, this is wrong. How can we go about fixing it? Not from a point of view of left or right, or, you know, butting heads, but of, like, moving forward as a society.
And I think after lockdown and everything that's been going on over the last, you know, we're human beings now. If you're annoyed by something, you're allowed to say, I'm not really happy about that. You know, let's talk lockdown straight away. You know, the government, some of the things they've done have been pretty crap. Some of the good, they've done some good, bad. It's a bit all over the place. We were supposed to go to Portugal, and then they put it on the amber list. So from my perspective, that's crap. And you make it, why put a system in place when it's like when they did the tier system. You know, we're going to bring in this brilliant tier system, and one place is allowed where you're allowed to roam free is the Isle of Man. Well, what's the point putting a tier fucking system in? You like dangling carrots in front of us and trying to make things everything rosy. Instead, tell us, be straight with this foreign travel. You know, you're not going to be able to travel abroad this year. The reality is, unless it's for business or something essential, you cannot. Instead of putting, and I understand that they're trying to do that to help the economy for Portugal, but what good's that when they gear up for it and you take it away?
Exactly. Mate, I've been talking about this literally for the last 6 months, and I came up with this incredible. I think this is genius, and I can't believe more people are talking about this. I think what they should have done early on is, first of all, as soon as the foreign variants started becoming more prevalent, is that they should have just shut the borders down straight away, and they should have said, we're going to contain. We're an island. We're perfectly situated to deal with. You know, virus is coming in, so they should have said all travel. It's foreign travel. It's not going to happen. If it was even for a month. Lock us down completely, so you can, like, you know, get the virus out of the system in the UK, get the vaccine rolled out, which the NHS have done an incredible job of doing. Obviously, one of the best vaccine rollouts in the world. You know, it's really miraculous. And you know, flush the virus out of the UK. Then don't allow any foreign travel, but give a VAT break on stay-at-home holidays, right? So that people, to get the economy moving again, give some sort of like tax alleviance for people that are paying for holidays at home, so that you encourage people to holiday at home. That's going to get more money into those places that have been decimated. It's going to get more people into pubs at home. It's going to get more people in different parts of the country, particularly parts of the country that would have suffered really badly from the pandemic, because people haven't been going there and they rely on people going on holiday. You know, got these like the fringes of the country that people rely on. People are going to want to go to different areas. So people want to go to Wales or up to Scotland or wherever. You know, they're going to encourage people to explore new parts of the UK. You could have this amazing, really positive campaign about how like incredible this country is, how beautiful this country is. Get people out, get the economy moving again. We've got, you know, the Euros going on, the amount of people that would be going out and like having, you know, drinks and stuff. It would have been amazing. And they've instead focused on this stupid traffic light system that doesn't work. You know, so you've got people paying for holidays abroad, because obviously if people are going to be able to go abroad, they're going to go abroad. Like, you can't blame people for that. You know, like, people are going to want a holiday abroad. And then telling them, no, actually you can't, or actually, yeah, it's amber, which no one really knows what that means. Like, you can go there, but we really recommend you don't go there. Like, it's, you know, it's just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And I've got this amazing plan, you know, that the government should be rolling out. I'm being ignored.
You should have wrote to Boris. I tell you what, though, it is ridiculous, because if you look where we've come from and where we are now, just be straight. Sometimes I think they're trying to juggle all these things and trying to be good for everybody. Just, if you just said, we've got freedom in the UK, enjoy that. Unfortunately, we can't go abroad. But don't bullshit and say, oh, you might be able to go abroad, but it's not safe, but you can do. But you've got to pay £500 and spend 8 hours filling out forms at the airport. And but anyway.
It's what you were saying about like the whole Piers Morgan thing, right? It's like just people being upfront with their views. And I always use the example of Margaret Thatcher, right? I think Margaret Thatcher's policies in this country absolutely decimated this country. However, I have major respect for her as an individual, because she was completely open. Like, there was no BS, like you say. You know, it wasn't like she was, you know, having mixed messages and saying one thing and her actions were another. And that's what we have with politicians in this country now. On all sides, it's all about PR. It's all about marketing. It's all about how is this going to affect my vote with the core voter. It's like, no, just be upfront with people, be honest with people. If the government turned around and said, we actually really fucked up, you know, in the early stages, people would have gone, yeah, you did. But people are more willing to forgive that if you rectify your mistakes than if you sort of lie constantly and make the situation worse, which is what, in my view, the government has ended up doing. Because of that, you know, it's a mess.
You notice that a lot more now, especially in these more modern times, where people appreciate that. And because politicians are politicians through and through, and they have been for many, many decades, I think hopefully one day that will break through a bit more, where a politician turns around and says, look, you know, we did fuck up. Well, God forbid they swear. If a politician can you imagine? It'd be like, they're a real person. Wow. They'll gain a lot more respect that way. For
sure.
But I think because they've got protocols and things they can say and they can't say, if they were that strong-willed, they would have never become a politician in the first place, because they wouldn't have been able to jump through the hoops, and people wouldn't have liked that. So you've got to be a bit of a yes man, I think, sometimes.
For sure. And this is the thing, you know, something that is particularly prevalent, you know, we've been kind of more privy to this, the more sort of media stuff that we've been able to do, and kind of, you know, like mixing these circles a little bit more, which is always interesting, is that if you are a politician and you say something that goes against your party, your career will be ruined. It is brutal.
It's game over.
It is absolutely brutal. You know, it really is. And it might be something as simple as, you know, you're standing up for somebody that's been downtrodden, and if that in any way goes against the party's message, your entire career as a politician will be ruined. It's really crazy. You know, and like you say, no, you know, I think most people, I like to think that most people that go into politics are well-intentioned and they want to do the right thing and they want to do the best. There's a lot of exceptions to that rule. A lot of them are on the front benches of the government at the moment, unfortunately. But it will break your will down. You know, I can
yeah.
imagine that it definitely would. So, you know, like who would go into politics really? You know, when you look at it like that. I mean, we need people to break that
Yeah.
chain, right? We need people to break that system and be more open.
I
It's
think
why
it
people
will.
voted for Donald Trump. You know, it's
Yeah.
why people voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, you know, yes, he was a nightmare, but he said exactly what Biden, where's Biden gone? What's he doing? What's he up to? We can't, you know, we feel lost now, don't we? Because we haven't got Trump to laugh at.
I look back at videos of him being president, and I'm like, I can't actually believe he was president. It's so bizarre.
What a character, though. What a character.
Yeah. Well,
you know.
That's the thing, yeah. And he was a case, you know, of a politician that was really upfront with what he said, and you know, he didn't hold fire. But then he's actually, when you look at his policies, they were kind of business as usual, sort of establishment nonsense. But a lot of that stuff doesn't really matter because he was so sort of brash. And I think Johnson's a little bit like this. He's so kind of brash with what he says and how he approaches stuff, and nothing sticks to him then. You know, any kind of controversy, you just roll with it.
Yeah,
you know,
and remember with Trump, he isn't a politician. He's a businessman. They voted in a businessman. He didn't know half the laws and half the things.
A terrible one, but yeah.
Yeah, you know. So, but it's things are definitely heading that direction. Rob, we were going to talk about because we've gone past the media thing, but I know Andrew Mars has got his new show, his new channel now. What's your thoughts on this then? I haven't watched it yet. I've heard.
Neither have I. I've seen a few clips, but I'm not particularly interested. And the only point that I want to make about GB News really is that they've sold themselves as this kind of anti-establishment media outlet, right? The voice of the people, GB News, right? We're going to be giving the voice of the British people. Every single one of their financial backers, every single one is based outside the UK. None of them are based in Britain, right? So that the whole GB News stuff is nonsense. It's complete nonsense. Andrew Neil is heading it up.
Yeah.
You don't get more establishment than Andrew Neil. This isn't you know, anti-establishment.
Yeah.
Like, this is like, you know, you've got a billionaire in Donald Trump going, you know, I'm going to be standing up for the working man. It's like, well, hang on a minute. You know, you've not really done any hard work ever in your life, ever. You don't really understand the issues of working people. You're not going to be standing up for the working class. It's more. My point is that this is just more of the same stuff. Right? This stat always blows my mind. 5 billionaires own 80% of the media in this country.
Yeah.
How insane is that? I mean, you know, we how can we look at our media and go, this is sort of free and democratic, and they're sharing the views of the people, you know, and pushing forward the agenda and the voice of the people, when 5 individuals, 5 billionaires own 80%, control 80% of the media. And GB News is just more of the same stuff. So I would just urge people to kind of try and see through the marketing and see it for what it is.
I can't ever see that changing, though. I mean, it's exactly the same in America. It's probably worse in America. But I can't see how that would ever break, how that would ever change, because money talks, power talks, and people like you is the only way we can sort of, you know, bring it in. This is the way, isn't it?
I think that's, you know, fundamentally what we're trying to do is, we're not, you know, I have bias. I'm you know, I have an opinion on pretty much everything. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I don't. And so does every single person who is involved in our outlet. However, what we try and do is source as many people with diverse opinions, because that is, you know, with diversity, that's the epitome of diversity to me, is finding people who have different life experiences, different viewpoints, different points of view, bringing them together to push forward something that is fairer, gives people more opportunities, has actual conversations, is driven by people who are facing the very problems that we're talking about, putting them at the center of conversations and trying to do things in a sort of fairer way, without the agenda of the outlet is to have those conversations. We aren't pretending that we as individuals don't have an agenda, because we do, but the agenda of the outlet is to have those conversations, really try and nail down and figure out what's going on, what problems people are facing, and share those with people. in a way that's useful, and that's what we're trying to combat against.
What I would say is, Jack, is this day and age and where we are at the minute, you've got more chance of taking those people on now where we are because social media, things going viral, people support, people, power to the people, is a lot. I mean, it's always been strong. It's always been strong back many years ago, but now the fact that you can have a very small company like your own and just say something that resonates with someone, they pass it to someone, it goes viral. All the money in the world can't pay. Well, they can't pay for that kind of publicity, real views and real people liking your content. So there's always that, isn't there? There's always that chance that you can,
for sure,
and spread the message.
We're not going anywhere, right? That's the other thing. We're going to be thorn in the side to the establishment media for the rest of my life, because it's that important to me.
Good.
And to everybody that's involved, it's that important. And I genuinely believe that, I don't want to start getting all crazy, but the survival of kind of democracy in this country rides on people like our contributors working towards those ends. It really does. It's that important to me. We see these things as being so stable. There's always been here, and it's so fragile. And at any moment, all of it can fall, right? And we have to fight for it. That freedom of speech, all of that stuff. We have to be continuously fighting for it and driving it forward. And I think it's really, really important. So.
Good. Okay, right. Now I know you're passionate about another thing that you've been talking about, and a subject which is dear to your heart. I know we touched on it when we last spoke, but obviously things are not improving over in China. Now, for people that don't really understand what's going on, just give us a bit of an overview, Jack, of your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so there's sort of multiple kind of human rights violations, abuses going on that are being perpetrated by the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. So they're like two acronyms that you'll hear, and I try not to use the phrase China because obviously it's not the Chinese people. China's an incredible country, and it's obviously not the Chinese people. So there's the PRC, People's Republic of China, and the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, and there's like the two entities in the Chinese system. So the CCP, which is the one I'll use, is sort of perpetrating multiple human rights abuses, whether it be human rights violations, clamping down on democracy in Hong Kong, forced organ harvesting of different minorities. Falun Gong Buddhists is the most common example, or the most common sort of minority group that's been targeted with the forced organ harvesting. And then the persecution of the Uyghur Muslims in the region that's commonly known as Xinjiang, but it's the sort of homeland of the Uyghur people. It's called East Turkestan. Now, the Uyghur Muslims are a sort of Turkic Muslim people. They speak a language called Uyghur that's very similar to Turkish. And this area, this region of northwest China has been sort of occupied by different groups over its history, predominantly by the USSR and by China. And they've kind of been persecuted in a number of ways, but the more sinister persecution, and I would use the phrase genocide, but we can get into that a little bit more, has been happening over sort of the last 20, 30 years. What's been going on, particularly in the last 10 years, is that these camps have been set up, re-education camps, they're commonly known as, that's what the CCP calls them, have been set up to detoxify and re-educate the Uyghur people in the region, because the CCP views the Uyghurs as a terrorist people. They view the sort of their strain of Islam as extremist, as Islamic fundamentalism, and they want to re-educate those people in order to be subservient to the CCP, essentially, and then they say to reintegrate them into society. Now, what's actually going on, and more reports are coming out to these ends, is that there is extreme torture. There are forced sterilization of women, forced abortions, murdering of babies, organ harvesting, imprisonment, abduction of children, systematic rape, sexual violence that's being perpetrated not only in these camps but in the homes of Uyghur people in the region by the CCP. And what we're trying to do, and what more people are being sort of awakened to, is raise awareness about what's going on and shed light on it and have some sort of action by the international community. Now, that's really difficult, obviously, because, you know, it's the CCP, it's the soon-to-be most powerful country in the world. But more and more countries are kind of starting to take a stand. And it's incredibly important. This is the largest genocide since World War II. You know, that's how 3 million Uyghurs been interned in these camps. This is systematic persecution that's going on, and it really couldn't be more important. And one of the things that we covered recently, 2 weeks ago now, was the Uyghur Tribunal, which had its first hearings a couple of weeks ago, and they're having more hearings in September. And then the findings will happen in December. And we got to listen to survivors of this genocide firsthand talk about the kind of abuse that they'd suffered, and it is horrific. It was really difficult to listen to these stories. You know, I don't know if you.
I've seen little bits of it. I've kept my eye on it a little bit. I mean, but I saw somewhere where they were giving witness testimonies, which would you could just tell they were completely falsified and corrupt. I think people were saying, you know, these people are lying. You know, they're not telling the truth. Why is it? It's such a difficult thing to get involved in. Do you think that's why a lot of countries are sort of standing back a little bit because it's such a superpower?
There's a couple things. I mean, obviously, like you say, that the CCP have given these statements, put out these statements, multiple statements, just, you know, lying about what's going on. They completely discredit anybody who sort of stands up to what's going on. These witnesses, like, I mean, the evidence of this persecution is overwhelming. Like, it's fact-based evidence. You cannot argue against it. It's backed up by academic research. It's individuals that have been in these camps giving evidence. One of the pieces, and if I may tell this story, because I think it sort of hammers home, and I think it's important to put a face on the people who are being persecuted. And the one story that really stuck with me is one of the women that was giving testimony. She had triplets, and she was arrested. I believe it was because her husband sort of went and visited family in one of the neighbouring countries, and then came back, and her husband was arrested, she was arrested, and her triplets, who were still breastfeeding at the time, were taken away from her. They were then, the triplets then had tubes inserted into their necks, and the mother wasn't allowed to breastfeed, and they were fed a liquid. Nobody knows what the liquid was through these tubes. They were kept in such horrific conditions that one of the babies literally froze. You know, not like it got hypothermia, froze solid. The two surviving children can't eat properly. They've got scars. One day they'll have to they'll have to, you know, sort of be told. And as this incredibly courageous, brave woman was giving testimony about her children, it was sort of like via video link. Her two children came into the background as she was discussing. Her two surviving children came to the background. It was really difficult to listen to, but incredibly important. And the bravery of these people is astounding. It really is. And illustrates that we all should be kind of sharing this information and getting involved as and when we can, because these people are brave enough to kind of speak up. And their lives are at risk. Their families' lives are at risk. They've got family members that are still in camps who will be tortured. You know, it's really horrific. The CCP completely discredited this woman and said that she was a liar. You know, it's disgusting. It's disgusting that they have the gall to sit there and discredit this individual. And what the most frustrating thing is for me is that we still have politicians in this country and around the world that aren't acting. And I think that anyone, as a human being, if you listen to that story, how can you not want to act? And to answer your question, the reason for that is because so much of the international economy is linked to China. You know, because of outsourcing and because of the position that we've put the international economy in. So much of the supply chains that companies use, and like we're trying to pressure more and more companies. VW is one who have a factory in this region. and we're trying to get them to close that factory and leave the region and stop manufacturing in the region. And many companies have done, to their credit, are intrinsically linked. You know, the British government, whilst condemning the human rights abuses, is open about their want for a trade deal with China at the moment.
Oh, well, no, yeah.
You know, with everything that's going on, and so are multiple other countries. So it's incredibly difficult. Which is why, you know, it's so important to share these stories and hope that the sort of moral aspect overcomes the economic aspect, and that gets to the crux of what we're fighting against, really.
I mean, it's such a difficult subject. I think the only thing you can do, Jack, is keep being passionate about it and keep spreading the word, and you know, and that's all you can do at the minute. And like you say, money talks, and they're such a superpower, and they're only going to get bigger because. Exactly. Everybody buys everything online, which gets shipped from China.
And you know, I like really encourage people, and we're all linked to this. So you know, I am as well. To try and be as cautious as they possibly can be about what they purchase, particularly when it's manufactured in China. It's almost impossible to be completely ethical with your clothing. In fact, I would say that it is pretty much impossible. But if you're going to boycott one country, boycott China. Boycott the manufacturing from China as much as you possibly can, because I think something like 85% of the cotton that comes from China is manufactured by slave labor from this Xinjiang region. And the only way that we as individuals can impact what's going on is by disrupting these supply chains. So really, you know, I would really implore people to be as difficult as they possibly can be.
Yeah. The other thing is as well, people always look at Russia, you know, and think, "Oh, gotta be careful with Russia," but they don't. You know, China are far more of a superpower than Russia are. People don't.
The Russian economy is in tatters as well. That's like something that people don't necessarily know. Like the Russian economy really is in
the army looks good, though.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
the army looks good. They didn't play the football didn't play very well the other day, which surprised me, because I would have thought they'd have had plenty of drugs inserted into them before they played. But it's obviously not Putin's priority at the minute.
No, exactly.
But
so that's all you can do, right? And the other thing that I just wanted to stress was that when we look at like holding them to account, there are only two ways, from a court perspective, a legal perspective, and that's through the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice. International Court of Justice is there to sort out disputes between countries. The International Criminal Court is there to prosecute, you know, individuals, or you know, to prosecute people. The International Criminal Court was set up in like 2002, I think, and the statute that was used to set that up, the Rome Statute, China isn't a signatory of, so they don't recognise the jurisdiction of the ICC. And then the ICJ is a UN, it's one of the 5 arms of the UN. The UN are shit, by the way, like in doing their job, in like sorting out these disputes. They're terrible. And obviously China is a part of the UN, but they don't acknowledge the jurisdiction of the ICJ, and they won't take part in any kind of trial. So the only way that we can get justice is either by courts in the UK making determinations, which like Essex court chambers are one that have made a determination of genocide, or governments having the bollocks to stand up to this country and say, we're not going to be a party to this. We're going to condemn you. We're going to sanction individuals. We're going to sanction you as a country. We're not going to trade with you, and we're going to encourage other countries to do the same. And the problem is that nobody wants to be the first person to stand up, which is why this tribunal that's going on, which is completely impartial, is all crowdfunded. Everybody that's taking part on the panel is doing it so on a volunteer basis. It acts like a jury. It just listens to this evidence. The People's Republic of China have been invited to speak, and they've refused to. All they've done, they've sanctioned the tribunal itself, so they won't recognise it, and they've refused to take part at every turn. They can rock up, like Xi Jinping, if he wants to, can rock up at the tribunal and give evidence, you know, which I'd love to see, but they've refused to. They won't allow people into the region really to look at these factories and see what's going on. So the only way we can do it is by getting a hearing from this tribunal and having people act on that hearing. It's not legally binding, so they don't have to, but all we can do is encourage people to do so. Like, you can write to your MPs, you can get involved, just learn about the story, share the survivor testimony as much as you possibly can, and stay up to date and like support these people as and when you can, because the Uyghur community, particularly in the UK, are amazing. And there's so many brave people.
Are you on your own podcast? Are you managing to get anybody? Are you getting plenty of voices on there about this, Jack?
Yeah, there's so many amazing
That's
organisations that are involved in this. You know, like I recommend if you want to learn more about it, like we've got loads of articles on our website, demographicauk.com. You can go check out our articles, and we do a lot of stuff on our Instagram, particularly as well, sort of sharing information about it. But some other organisations that you can follow, particularly like two incredible youth-led organisations, Yet Again UK, who do work against like modern atrocity and genocide and modern slavery, and Burst the Bubble. They're two incredible youth-led organisations that we work really closely with, and they do amazing work. Yet again, a more sort of like the kind of legal aspect, and they do lots of advocacy work on getting like a genocide determination and sharing information about that. And Burst the Bubble do loads of really good sort of campaigning on this issue and other issues. So, you know, get involved with them. Stop Uyghur Genocide are another one. They're like the main
best thing to do is send me these links, and then what I'll do is I'll put them in the show notes, and then people
absolutely. But there's loads of really great organisations that you can get involved with, and like loads of campaigns that are going on, loads of stuff you can share. So there is stuff happening, but it's a long fight.
Stick at it, which I'm sure you will, because your passion is through the roof. And we need people like you to be that passionate,
I appreciate
to have a voice and spread the word, because it's just horrendous. And I'd like to think in this day and age we can we can sort things out like this. I would like to.
Let's hope so.
We just. We don't know. All we can do is do our bit, and if we're passionate enough about it, try and make a bit of a difference, which is what you're doing, which is great. Now, I asked you for our voice last time, so I'm not going to ask you for that again, but I'm going to ask you for a favourite. Have you a recent favourite? Have you been watching what you've been watching on telly? Any films or anything like that?
What have I been watching recently? I've been watching the US version of The Office again for like the third time, which is always amazing. Yeah, the thing is, when like I'm just like so like 100 miles an hour with all the stuff that we're doing, right? So when I'm watching something, what I really want is something that I can like unwind to.
Yeah.
And that's great. You know, it's like really easy watching. I love it. It's like real comfort, like happy place stuff. Yeah. So that's what I've been watching recently. I've been reading two really good books. One called Rebel Ideas by Matthew Syed, which is great. I really recommend. And then another book on leadership by a former Navy SEAL called Jocko Willink.
I know him.
Extreme Ownership, it's called, which is awesome. You know, like, and that's full on. Like, he's a really full on guy. You think like, you know, we can be intense. Like he's another level. He's got quite a few bits and bobs on YouTube. He does. Yeah, he's got an amazing podcast.
Amazing
he's like up at 4 o'clock every morning doing pull-ups and recording these videos in all black and white.
Similar to me.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Yeah, 100 pull-ups before I even get out of bed.
But apart from that, I'm just like watching lots of football, you know, trying to enjoy get to the pub when I can. The Euros, of course, I'll be watching like pretty much every game, so that's been nice.
Yeah, it's nice, refreshing. Refreshing, a bit of reality, a bit of normality, should we say?
Are you a big football fan?
Oh yeah, I love
Who
football.
do you support?
I support Liverpool and I follow Coventry from a scene. I say support, I follow them.
Sure.
But I follow Coventry, obviously, is just up the road, so I go and watch them now and again. Liverpool, the difficulty with a lot of Premier teams now is just paying the cost of travelling and paying for a game is so expensive. But yeah, I do. But the England team, you know, when the England,
of course.
The only time I ever cry is when England lose.
Is it coming home then? What do we reckon?
I don't know. The thing with England is you never know until they play one of the best teams. When they play the best teams like Germany or Italy or something like that, they pull it out of the bag, and we always end up, you know, going to penalties. Why do we always go to penalties? Which means we're playing well. We're level terms. We just need to get that little bit of luck. If you look at all the times we've just missed out, it's hit the crossbar or the post, or there's been a foul, or David Beckham's got sent off. If we can get that little bit of luck, we've got a chance. But I mean, watching France last night, oh, Jesus, man, that's so.
It's just the quality that they've got is just unreal. You know, like that first Mbappe goal that got ruled out. You just think at any moment he can turn it on and like score a worldie, and that's the dangerous.
It's like a pinball machine. The way they just pass the ball about. Whereas England will do that for a few minutes and then they'll lose it. France are just boom, boom, boom for the next 10 minutes. It's pretty phenomenal. But
well, I think if we've got any chance of winning anything, you know, I know we said this with like the golden generation, but I think that this team and like some of the quality that we've got coming up is just so unreal that we get the right team out there. We get a bit of form, I believe.
But you see, you're young, Jack. I had this conversation when I was 20, and this is the team. And what's the World Cup? The 1990 World Cup, the 96 World Cup when we should have won it. Yeah. And it's the same every bloody year.
Well, you know, I'm a West Ham fan, and I got a season ticket next year with my mum. Which, you know, like it's the first time I've had season tickets, and you say about the price, you know, it's a bit like...
Oh my God, dread to think down there what it is.
It's not too bad compared to some of the other teams. It's not like Arsenal level, which is like £1,200 for a season ticket, which is insane. But I've got so much misery being a West Ham fan in my life that I have to try and get some hope from somewhere. Obviously, it wasn't so bad last season, but so I'm fully bought into the who
wants to be these boring teams like Man City anyway? Exactly. Like, you know, we're on about Harry Kane. Everybody's holding off. When the tournament's finished, how much is he going to go? You know, if he scores some more goals, he can put his price up. He's left Tottenham, and it's like, I can understand, in one sense, I can understand these players leaving because they want to have more money. I think agents are involved a lot. Sure. But then I have the utmost respect for players from my generation, like Gerrard. I mean, I don't really like Man United, but look at some of that, like Scholes and Giggs, that stay at that club and are completely, you know, devoted to that club. And I think we lose that a little bit this day and age. Sure. It's a bit of a shame, but
there definitely is. You know, we've got like Mark Noble, who I think is probably like one of the last of that breed of players who came through the youth system. Like, you know, I really hope that Declan Rice follows in his footsteps. I think he'll probably leave at some point, but I'd love it if he did. And that kind of player that comes up through the youth system, grew up down the road, went and watched us every week when he was a kid, or was like peeking through the fence or whatever. Like, we've kind of lost that now, haven't we? Because of the money and the agents' fees and all of that stuff. I don't think it's sustainable, really.
And to be fair, as I get older, I think about a career of a footballer, and it's not that long, is it really? You've got to have plenty of things in place. Yeah, these kids, I know a few of them from Cov City, they're earning a lot of money. They just sit on their Xbox all day, then they go and play football, then they go and spend it in nightclubs or doing whatever. They waste that money. And then when they retire, it's like, where's all that money gone? You need to have that head on you, don't you? That wise head on you at a young age to invest that money and think about the future, which some of them do. I mean, Gary Lineker always talks about it. You know, he knew exactly what he wanted to do and planned it out, but it's
rare though, isn't it? Like, we don't have that education at all, like financial education.
It's a brutal system as well. I remember watching a documentary once, and this lad, he was come through the Chelsea system, and he knew he was going to make it. Got 60, and they said, "No, you're not good enough," and they just dumped him.
It is brutal.
Through school has thought, you know, I'm going to make it, and then to get dumped, and he has to go and work in a factory or something. It's
crazy.
An interesting one, that's for sure.
For sure.
Anyway, so if people want to go to the website or contact you, Jack, where's the best place to go?
Demographicauk.com, and then at DGNofficial _ on every single social media platform, so nice and easy to find. But all our information is on our website.
As always.
Get involved.
Excellent. Well, look, it's been an absolute joy having you on yet again, Jack. We'll get back together again in 12 months.
Definitely.
See where you are then. You'll have 50 people. Oh, yeah. Get practicing. I want to come in out. We'll meet halfway and we'll have a game.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for having me as well. I really appreciate it. And,
no problem. Always enjoy chatting, mate. Yeah, it's been a cracker. Brilliant. All right, then. Look after yourself, Jack, and I'll speak to you soon.
You too. All the best.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
That's it. Thanks again to Jack for joining me today, and also for you for listening. Make sure you follow the podcast coming up over the next few months, because there are some more extraordinary interviews. The podcast streaming on all usual platforms, including iTunes and Spotify. And also, if you want to see the video and this beautiful beard, then we're on YouTube. Just search My Way of Thinking Podcast and we pop up everywhere. Oh, that sounds naughty. Now, please leave a review if you do go and subscribe where possible. To keep updated on social media, Facebook is My Way of Thinking Podcast. Instagram is MWOT Podcast. And finally, if you want to get in touch or you think you'll be a great guest, email me, mwotpodcast@aol.com. Until next time, God bless. Take care.
Bye.